right, and hello, and we are live. So, welcome to the show for tonight, June 3rd, 2026. Tonight's show is called Indiana State Police Doug Carter at the Center of Even More Questionable Bullshit. And tonight we're going to be looking into Jeff Heron, Doug Carter, Mike Pence, Eric Holcomb, a bunch of other interesting things about this controversy that I wanted to cover tonight. So stay tuned. We got the things here that you need to see. We're going to be taking a look at everything and talking. So come on in, make yourself comfortable, and please share this. Let everybody know we're here, especially you Indiana locals. Okay, and we'll be right back. And God bless everybody. Okay, we'll be right back when we get started right now. And I'm going to get these documents going. Okay, apparently I'm not quite ready, but the music is finished. So So that's what it is. But welcome everybody. I'm glad to see everybody. Hey, look, Christina there. Look, we have Carla Ann. All right, Carla Ann, welcome in. Carla Ann, Trial Junkie, welcome in. Oh, hey, Christina, Quadaxel Mimi, hello to you. Um, Deb's here. Everybody say hello to Deb. We got It's a New Day in here. David Rogers, Snoop Sleuth. Welcome in, Snoop Sleuth. We missed you. Okay, we got Nicole Watt. Hey, Nicole. And we have Mustang here. What up, Mustang? Um, it's hard to see everybody here. What the hell's wrong with my eyes? We got Critter Mama. Critter Mama's here. Peachy's here. All right, what's up? David Rogers, Court of Public Opinion, Erica Morris. Okay, so if I missed anybody, just let me know in the chat. Okay, I'm not trying to miss everybody, but I see a bunch of people, and it's kind of last minute. We got Trial Junkie. Okay, Trial Junkie said she changed her name, so let me put her name up here so we can see. What is it? Come on, Prof, get it together tonight. All right. Trial Junkie. It's TJ. It's Trial Junkie. I changed my name to Trial Junkie True Crime. All right. What's up, everybody? Now, hey, what? Whoa, I missed somebody else. Who we got? Donnie Kuntz. What's up, Donald? Good to see you. What's up? Who's her daddy? All right. Good to see you. Goose's Gammy's here. Good to see you too. Okay. I don't want to miss anyone. Four Pits in. All right. He's in. He's in for the discussion. All right. What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? We got Christina. Oh, Rebecca Ann here. What's up, Rebecca? Okay, everybody. All right. So, look, going forward from here on out, please welcome anyone who comes into the chat because I'm going to be a little distracted here. I literally have like 4 devices on my desktop here. There's so many articles and transcripts we're going to read tonight. So I got all these devices. I got my drink here. Got my mouse is not really working properly tonight. So that's what we're doing. But tonight we're going to be talking about something extremely interesting. Okay. And I'm going to give you my take on what I'm seeing in this thing that's going on. Okay. And this thing here is so interesting. I feel like I need to, get off on the right foot by explaining to you, kind of giving you the spoiler alert. Okay. So what we're looking at here, we are looking at a fracture, okay, between two power components in Indiana. And that's what we're going to be talking tonight. And what we're going to be talking about is so interesting because we are going to be talking about the old power structure in Indiana. And that means Eric Holcomb, Mike Pence, Doug Carter, all right, versus the new power structure, which is Mike Braun, Anthony Scott. Okay. Now, look, there's this thing because there's a tie that binds, and that problem is the disease in Indiana, which are some of the ISP employees here and the political operatives. So people like Jerry Holman, right, that we're talking about here, and you have all of these sheriffs. So you have many people who span or tied together these two contingents of power. And these are the tie that bind, all right? These are the ties that bind your long-standing players, the sheriffs, the detectives, the people in the ISP who they make it through the transition of administrations. So what's very interesting here is that there's this civil war. That's right. There's an inner war that's taking place. And that inner war is Doug Carter, right? Well, I want to put it on this hand. So this inner war, you're dealing with Doug Carter, Jeff Heron, Eric Holcomb, Mike Pence, the old players that you know from Indiana, okay? The players you know from Indiana who go back years in this, that's the one side. And this war is being waged with the new face of Indiana, right? The new administration, the new ISP superintendent, Anthony Scott, and the new governor, Mike Braun. So suddenly we're seeing surface a very hateful divide between the former ISP head, the new ISP head, right? The former governor, the new governor, the former state police, the new state police. And I thought that that was worth addressing tonight because when we find something like this, it's worth shining a light on, all right, and putting out in front for everyone to see. All right. Let me check this out. I see we have a problem that I have to solve because I'm the exterminator, right? I take care of the cockroaches. So let me go in and find that cockroach again. Where's that cockroach? Let's see. We got that cockroach. Where is he? Oh, Deb. Okay, thank you, Deb. All right. All right, so um, it's okay. So let's make sure we don't have a problem here. Supposed to be using this. Let's make sure my audio settings are proper. Okay, everything looks good. All right, so let me pull up our first thing. And give me a moment. Okay, so I'm going to read to you this summary of where we're going tonight. Okay, this is our introduction to tonight's show. So let's get this introduction rolling, and I'll help you all understand, hopefully, what we're actually looking at. Okay, um, so let me get going here. All right, it says Lieutenant Jeffrey Herein, a veteran Indiana State Police ISP detective. Lieutenant with over 37 years experience, no prior disciplinary record. Faced internal discipline in July 2025 following his role as lead investigator in a very high-profile probe into Dubois County Sheriff Tom Kleinhelter. Background in ISP investigation, the ISP controversy. In mid-2024, ISP opened a criminal investigation into Sheriff Kleinhelter after a state board of accounts audit flagged potentially questionable spending of jail commissary funds. Allegations included using public funds for personal travel, meals, clothing, golf, and other expenses tied to conferences in Florida and Arizona, often with his wife, plus issues with a canceled Dubai trip and related reimbursements. Herein took over, Jeff Herein, as lead investigator after an earlier detective was reassigned. Now, here's what's important that I didn't put in here. Jeff Herein was appointed by Doug Carter. Okay, so as we go forward, as we get moving into this story, just understand that Jeff Herein was appointed by Doug Carter, okay? Herein conducted extensive work, including interviews, search warrants, financial analysis, and records review, and produced an 80 or so page probable cause affidavit recommending charges against Thomas Kleinhelter, who's the sheriff over there, and recommended charges in this probable cause affidavit, such as official misconduct, theft, forgery, deception, and obstruction of justice. Okay, so stop there. So what's important about that is that the first red flag that goes off to me upon reading this probable cause affidavit is that it's extremely slim. So although it's beefed up to be 80 plus pages, and there were several drafts of this, by the way, this entire thing was a targeting, in my opinion, of Thomas Kleinhelter. Now, the question you have to ask, because remember, this is coming on the heels of the Jamie Knoll investigation. And you guys all remember the Jamie Knoll investigation. And Doug Carter was spearheading that, right? So it's funny that on the heels of this Jamie Knoll investigation, Doug Carter spearheads this Thomas Kleinhelter investigation, in which they target Thomas Kleinhelter and they go through with a fine-tooth comb and try to find things in his discretionary spending on trips as sheriff to try to use to prosecute him, okay? And the prosecutor was working with the ISP here, right, to beef up that case or that probable cause against Thomas Kleinhelter. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so. Okay. Well, in February 2025, special prosecutor, oddly enough, Holly Huddleston, okay, declined to file charges, stating there was insufficient evidence of criminal intent. Okay. In other words, the special prosecutor said, yeah, no, there's not enough evidence of criminal intent in this, so I'm not going to charge Kleinhelter. Okay? So Kleinhelter repays all the funds that are alleged to be inappropriate. He reimburses for the full amount down to the penny. Okay? Well, in the meantime, what happens is Jeffrey Herein gets investigated and disciplined by an internal investigation in the state police. So some of the accusations here is that he was leaking stuff, okay? So he inappropriately shared the probable cause affidavit with at least two local county commissioner board type of officials in the county where Kleinhelter is sheriff. Then he sent sort of like inappropriate or pressuring. He tried to pressure the special prosecutor to press these charges or to pursue this case, even though it's the prosecutor's discretion whether or not to pursue a case against the accused, no matter if a PCA is drawn up. So you could even draw up a substantial PCA, but it doesn't matter if your PCA is substantial or not. It's up to the prosecutor to decide whether or not they want to bring the case. Okay? Anyhow, so Herein emails this prosecutor in an attempt to pressure the special prosecutor into bringing his case. So he expressed disagreement and accused others of being ignorant of the facts, requested a meeting, and all of this. So the special prosecutor says, whoa, 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 whoa. This is unprofessional and it's overbearing. So, in other words, Doug Carter's guy is now pressuring the prosecutor to bring charges against this Thomas Kleinhelter, sheriff in Dubois County or Dubois County. Huddleston or this prosecutor viewed this tone as inappropriate and forwarded as a complaint of sorts to ISP Internal Affairs for review. Okay. And then in July of 25, the new ISP superintendent, who apparently Doug Carter does not like at all, and you're going to learn that shortly. This new ISP superintendent issued a discipline against Jeffrey Herein. But in a way, in my opinion, it was merely a slap on the wrist, but nevertheless, it was a disciplinary action. Herein was found to have violated 3 ISP policies, which was disseminating information that was not disclosable to the public. So that's, in a way, we know we've had problems with leaks throughout this, where it's somewhat of a different nature because it wasn't a public blasting of this on social media like the Delphi prosecutors have done, but it was nevertheless disseminating confidential information that was not meant for public disclosure. Okay. He was also disciplined for conduct unbecoming of an officer and or overbearing or oppressive conduct in the discharge of his duties tied to this email or these emails to the prosecutor, okay, which was cited as outside the bounds of professional expectations. As I mentioned, he was only given a slap on the wrist. In other words, he was suspended for 2 days, okay, for 2 days. He was removed from his or demoted from his position as investigative commander in ISP. He was reassigned to the Indiana Intelligence Fusion Center and barred from teaching or instructing at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. This disciplinary document we're going to take a look at references his right to appeal, which he did do, okay? Now, through his attorney, Andrew Duncan, Herein stated that his work was top tier, impeccable, and that the probable cause affidavit was thorough and sufficient, and that disciplinary charges were manufactured to make it appear as if he had done something wrong. He vigorously denied any wrongdoing and is appealing his disciplinary actions in front of the Indiana State Police Board. As of the most recent public reports, the appeal is ongoing with no publicly reported final resolution. Now, what gets very interesting is that Doug Carter, even though he's retired, even though he has no place in any of this anymore, he found in himself the audacity to come forward. And remember, he's the one who appointed Herein. So he comes forward publicly on a podcast and starts alleging political interference. He suggests the investigation was targeted against Jeffrey Herein and pointed the finger at Governor Mike Braun as being a problem here. Okay? And he referenced Mike Pence in this podcast. He referenced Eric Holcomb in this podcast. He referenced the Delphi murders in this podcast. And he referenced, without naming, Jerry Holman in this podcast. Okay? And he lambasted Governor Mike Braun and claimed that this discipline was unjustified, terrible, destroyed a man's career, uh, possibly ruined him in terms of the Jamie Knoll case, where he is because this Jeff Herein was also involved in the Jamie Knoll investigation, as I said. So Carter comes forward on this podcast and says, "Oh no, well, uh, yeah, Eric Holcomb was great, and Mike Pence was great, and this Jeffrey Herein is great, but it's this new ISP superintendent, Anthony Scott, is no good, and Mike Braun is no good." You know what I mean? Well, both the special prosecutor and Governor Braun's office, who are the current power players in Indiana, strongly denied any external pressure from Governor Braun or Thomas Kleinhelter, and they denied any pressure or external influence in their decisions not to charge. Okay? And the special prosecutor says there was no contact with the governor's office. Well, interestingly enough, on April 9th, 2026, the Marion County prosecutor, Ryan Mears, Ryan Mears now, he files new criminal charges now against Sheriff Kleinhelter. 1 level 6 felony count of official misconduct and 3 class B misdemeanor counts of false informing. Now, these are based on alleged false statements Kleinhelter made during a December 19, 2024 recorded interview with ISP, which was part of Jeff Herein's investigation, including claims about golf outings being conference-related, the nature of the Dubai trip refund claimed as an airline credit rather than returned to a personal card, and whether he had appointed his wife as a special deputy. These seem to contradict financial records and other evidence, but to be honest, when I reviewed this new probable cause affidavit and these new charges, it's extremely thin. It's very, very questionable. Okay, in other words, Ryan Mears' actions here are extremely questionable, in my opinion. When you go through all of the financials, you look at what's being claimed, you look at these lies that were supposedly told, there were no lies. I don't see lies in there. I see questions being answered to the best of Kleinhelter's knowledge, of what he understood. It's nothing like the lies we've seen in other cases we've looked at here in Indiana. So when I'm looking at it and I'm trying to weigh this, what I'm seeing is that Kleinhelter is the least wrong of anyone in all of this. Okay, I think that Ryan Mears and Doug Carter are the most wrong in all of this, and I'm gonna show you some of that momentarily. Now, in the midst of all of this, Kleinhelter is also facing separate administrative proceedings before the Indiana Law Enforcement Training Board. Okay. Now, Herein was, anyway, Herein was lauded as a longtime ISP lieutenant with no record of much wrongdoing, and even called a hero after performing CPR on an elderly woman during a traffic stop on I-70. Okay. So that's the context of what we're looking at. Let me see if I can get together enough to get started with this situation. Let's see. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here and here. All right. So now we're going to look at some of the reporting here. Okay. So this says lengthy investigation into sheriff's alleged wrongdoing ends with investigator in hot water. And this is by Casey Smith at the Indiana Capitol Chronicle. Okay. August 15th, 2025, as you can see. It says a months-long state police investigation into Du Bois County Sheriff Tom Kleinhelter scrutinized his handling of jail commissary funds. But unlike a high-profile case against former Clark County Sheriff Jamie Knoll, no charges were filed, and the only person disciplined was the detective who pursued the case. Some of the information became public during a July 25th interview with conservative, quote unquote, talk radio host Rob Kendall and Casey Daniels. Former ISP Superintendent Doug Carter made explosive allegations that Governor Mike Braun's office was involved in squashing the investigation, but provided zero evidence for his claims. Okay? Zero evidence. And this is what I mean about the war, the civil war that's happening here. Okay? Now, Governor Mike Braun's office strongly denied any involvement in the case, and Special Prosecutor Holly Huddleston of Orange County said that no one from the governor's office influenced her decision to seek criminal charges. I didn't feel like there were criminal charges there, she told Indiana Capitol Chronicle in a recent interview, so I declined to file charges. Well, like I mentioned, now you have Ryan Mears has said, hey, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to file charges, right? Now, this criminal investigation stemmed from a 2024 audit by the Indiana State Board of Accounts, which flagged more than $16,000 in spending by Thomas Kleinhelter. State auditors forwarded this case to the Indiana Attorney General's office and the local prosecuting attorney. And the state police investigation opened an investigation in July 2024. An 80-page probable cause affidavit prepared by ISP investigator Lieutenant Jeffrey Herein and later obtained by the Indiana Capitol Chronicle alleged that Kleinhelter used public funds for trips to Arizona and Florida. Law enforcement regularly drafts affidavits to provide a factual basis for charging a crime, but ultimately the decision is up to the prosecutor. Herein also spearheaded the years-long ISP investigation that ultimately landed Jamie Knoll in prison. Now, Carter replaced the original investigator in the Kleinhelter case after 2 months because he said it needed a closer look. So that's a highlight for you guys. Remember when I said Doug Carter assigned Jeffrey Herein this task, okay? So Doug Carter being unsatisfied or dissatisfied with the audit or the investigation into Thomas Kleinhelter said, I'm done with you, took that guy out and put in Jeffrey Herein to go after this guy. Okay? So Herein's affidavit, as well as several search warrant requests and returns filed, alleged that Kleinhelter created and backdated special deputy paperwork for his wife, seemingly to falsely legitimize inappropriate expenses for travel through the commissary fund. Records collected by Herein through search warrants allege that Kleinhelter attempted to reimburse himself for other purchases, including prepaid gift cards and Blackstone grills the sheriff said were purchased as gifts for sheriff department employees. Herein wrote in his affidavit that Kleinhelter later told auditors he conducted his own self-audit of commissary records and voluntarily paid back additional money, which he did. But Herein said in a search warrant, or several, and his affidavit that Kleinhelter's repayments only occurred after media inquiries began and the criminal investigation was opened. Kleinhelter, who is in the second year of his second and final term as sheriff at the time of the writing of this article, denied these allegations. He told the Capitol Chronicle he fully cooperated with investigators and fully abided by the state law and Dubois County Council recommendations related to commissary fund spending. And remember when I said that Heron inappropriately reached out to two of the county commissioners? There was no crime that had been committed, he wrote in an emailed statement. The trips which Kleinhelter logged as travel for professional conferences, which included numerous leisurely activities that were outside the bounds of training Heron alleged in his affidavit. Heron concluded in his affidavit that receipts, travel logs, and interviews showed the trips were largely personal, including charges for golf, hotels, baseball games, alcohol, and meals for two, often with his wife, Angie, who was not at the time a county employee. In one example detailed in the affidavit, Kleinhelter expensed a golf outing in Florida as training. Photos, receipts, and other records gathered during the investigation indicated Kleinhelter spent up to 5 hours a day at golf courses on two separate days during scheduled sessions of the 2021 National Sheriff's Association Conference in Scottsdale. But see, this is where it gets to questionable charges, because I'm asking the question, if he's on a business trip at a sheriff's council or a conference on behalf of his employment as a sheriff, are these expenses justified if he's golfing with other sheriffs or other members of this conference that he's attending to on behalf of representing the sheriff's department? It's pretty weak. Like when you read through the receipts, you read through the probable cause affidavit by Mears, it's all extremely weak. Nevertheless, Heron alleged in the search warrants that Kleinhelter also submitted incomplete or falsified receipts. And Heron's affidavit said the sheriff kept a $14,747 refund for canceled airline tickets to a conference in Dubai, rather than returning the money to the commissary fund. But the interesting thing here is that at this point in time, he has returned the money to the commissary fund. Kleinhelter did not make any mention of the trip being canceled until he was interviewed by ISP on August 29, 2024. And Heron stated in the search warrant, Heron stated in the search warrant documents. But the audit was completed and published before that interview. Okay. Kleinhelter said the trip to Dubai was canceled, but it was never mentioned to the State Board of Accounts because they never asked, and he never volunteered the information, Heron wrote in a November 7th search warrant request. Kleinhelter said he initially received points instead of monetary refund and later converted those points to cash. Because Kleinhelter allegedly withheld information about canceling the trip, the State Board of Accounts only found Kleinhelter liable for repaying costs related to his wife. Heron continued in the warrant request. Had State Board of Accounts known the trip was canceled, Kleinhelter would have been responsible for returning all of the county funds used to pay for the trip. When questioned about the Dubai tickets, Kleinhelter told ISP investigators, "I could have easily just lied about that, but I told the truth and paid back the money so that I wouldn't be a liar, or a thief, I guess." According to search warrant requests, he added that his actions would have been permissible if I would have just made my wife a special deputy. But records gathered by Heron appear to show Kleinhelter did try to deputize his wife after the spending on the trips and after SBOA began auditing the commissary account. Heron's affidavit and search warrant filings allege that Kleinhelter created and backdated two special deputy forms for Angie Kleinhelter during the audit process and asked an attorney to sign one of them without dating it. The sheriff initially told investigators he had not appointed Angie, but later claimed in an interview with ISP to have done so and submitted the forms to state auditors. And as I mentioned, if you truly dive into these documents, you will see that there's a very thin line or very fine line here, because as I read through Kleinhelter's statements, it seems to me that he is speaking in good faith and did relay these things as accurate to his knowledge. And it seems to me that there's this targeting or there's this parsing of 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 words and scrutiny and facts to try to twist this into criminal activity when it literally it's a there's a fine line there. And I believe this is what the special prosecutor was looking at. There's just not enough there to determine criminal intent on the part of Kleinhelter. Nevertheless, Doug Carter, Jeff Heron, and Ryan Mears are adamant that this be pursued and that there was criminal intent. Okay. In a statement to Capitol Chronicle, Kleinhelter said a document was created at the recommendation of the State Board of Accounts, referring to the special deputy paperwork. Investigators found no evidence that State Board of Accounts instructed Kleinhelter to backdate or retroactively fill out the special deputy documents, but it doesn't mean he wasn't recommended to do so. Now, Indiana law allows sheriffs to appoint special deputies, but only under specific statutory conditions. Yeah, you know what? We should look at that when it comes to Kathy Shank. That's something that hasn't been looked at enough for Kathy Shank. And to be honest, all of this special deputy posturing, it probably needs to be a thing of the past, because it seems like individuals across the board are using the power of appointing these special deputies or special investigators or deputizing civilians in order to have civilians how could I phrase that? To do the dirty work. You know, it just seems like it's a chess move, semantically and for reasons of libel, to deputize these civilians in order to give them access to shit they shouldn't have access to, like in the case of Kathy Shank, to blame them for shit that was done while they were appointed special deputy or investigator, like they did with Kathy Shank, or to justify indiscretions in spending, like what appears to be happening with Thomas Kleinhelter. But is that criminal activity, or is it using the law and the conventions the way they are to ride this line, to straddle this line? I don't know. When state auditors told Kleinhelter he was responsible for returning more than $16,000, roughly $8,800 attributed to airfare and training conference costs for Kleinhelter's wife, and $7,900 for Visa gift cards and grills, he asked the county auditor to transfer money from a sheriff's donation fund to cover the debt, according to search warrant request. When the auditor asked why, Kleinhelter replied, "Because that is how I want to do it." Heron recommended that Kleinhelter be charged with multiple offenses, including official misconduct, forgery, theft, deception, ghost employment, and obstruction of justice. And this is what I mean about stacking the deck against this guy, which leads me to believe there's some targeting here, despite whether what he did was questionable in some ways or not. It seems as though, for some reason, Doug Carter, Eric Holcomb, and Jeff Heron were attempting to target this guy and bring him down with a hefty set of charges that would ensure that he would be imprisoned for a lengthy sentence. No charges filed. Despite evidence gathered by Heron, Special Prosecutor Huddleston declined to pursue any charges. After meeting with ISP investigators in September 24, Huddleston said she was uncertain if the collected evidence amounted to criminal charges, and I would agree with her. She said she expressed the same concerns months later during another meeting with ISP investigators in February. In a February 20th press release, Kleinhelter announced that he had been cleared and said he never had the intent to defraud Dubois County, which I believe at this point. All monies used had been paid back in full to the county, the sheriff said in his statement, which is factual. Now, Special Prosecutor Huddleston, in a recent interview, said she did not think there was enough there to prosecute Sheriff Kleinhelter. I had a real issue with any sort of criminal intent involved, and so do I, the prof. And I didn't feel like I would be able to prove the case, Huddleston said. Cases have elements that need to be proved, and I just did not feel like all of those elements were met. Again, this is prosecutorial discretion. She added that no one had pressured her not to file charges because the allegations from Doug Carter were that Governor Mike Braun had pressured her to not file charges. Huddleston described in a follow-up email Herein sent her. Huddleston, special prosecutor, described a follow-up email Jeff Herein sent her as unprofessional, though she said she did not file a formal complaint and instead forwarded that message to others within the ISP. In this February 19th email, Herein questioned Huddleston's decision not to pursue charges against Kleinhelter and asked for a face-to-face meeting to discuss the case. You know, kind of like Jerry Holman did with Todd Click. Remember what Jerry Holman did with Todd Click? Yeah, let's have a face-to-face meeting. Okay? I've worked numerous cases and understand we each have a role. Basically, police investigate and prosecutors prosecute, Herein wrote. Unfair second guessing on both sides can quickly erode each other's credibility and sour future relationships. Well, that was oddly prophetic, because what we're currently dealing with is an absolutely sour, combative, and insane straining of relationships between the old ISP and the new ISP, between Doug Carter and Anthony Scott, between Eric Holcomb and Mike Braun. So you see what's going on here? When I say civil war, I don't use that term lightly. Okay? And they're going to go and beef him up now. So they say Herein, a 37-year law enforcement veteran with no prior infractions, was formally disciplined by state police on July 17th in connection to his work on the Kleinhelter case. According to disciplinary records, the internal investigation launched shortly after Herein sent this inappropriate email, to the prosecutor. Okay. ISP's internal findings, issued by Superintendent Anthony Scott, stated that Jeff Herein acted outside the bounds of professional expectations in his communications with the prosecutor. He was found by Indiana State Police to be in violation of 3 agency policies in total: disseminating information not disclosable to the public, conduct unbecoming of an officer, and an overbearing or oppressive conduct in the discharge of his duties. Okay? Here, these are them there. Okay? This disciplinary report states that Herein improperly sent a copy of the probable cause affidavit to at least 2 officials in Kleinhelter's county before the case had even been reviewed or closed by the special prosecutor. You see, what the way I look at this. Okay, let me give my input on this. This is triangulation, in my opinion, because what Doug Carter's guy is doing here, he's triangulating on Thomas Kleinhelter. He's saying, "Oh, well, I'm going to send this to the special prosecutor. Oh, the prosecutor's not going to do anything. Okay, I'm going to send it to the local county commissioners because maybe they'll do something, or maybe they'll pressure the prosecutor." And so there's all this triangulation happening. And in my opinion, that triangulation is still happening with Ryan Mears at this current day. ISP officials concluded the document sharing violated the chain of command expectations and breached internal ISP rules governing investigative communications. So you see what's happening? Despite what Doug Carter says, right? Despite what Jeff Herein says, despite what Ryan Mears says, the ISP internal investigation itself concluded that Jeff Herein violated their own policies and norms by sharing these documents, violating the chain of command, and by breaching their own internal rules governing investigative communications. That's why you're not hearing from Jerry Holman right now. Do you guys realize the reason you don't hear jack shit from Jerry Holman right now is because he's been told, don't say shit. Allegedly. Herein was cited for unprofessional conduct related to his email to Huddleston, special prosecutor. The department's review said the tone of the email, particularly his suggestion that the prosecutor was failing to communicate and undermining the investigation, crossed a line. Does that sound familiar in ISP bully tactics? Okay. In a statement to Capitol Chronicle, Jeff Heron's attorney, Andrew Duncan, maintained that Jeff Heron is the best detective in the Indiana State Police. I mean, dude, I bet you Doug Carter would contend with that and would say, no, it's Jerry Holman. I'd walk over hot shards of ass for Jerry Holman, right? But again, Jeff Heron is the best detective the ISP has to offer, according to his lawyer. His work is impeccable, as is his honesty and integrity. Jerry Holman is not a liar. Sound familiar? He undertook an investigation at the direction of former Superintendent Doug Carter. And I'm highlighting that because I want you to see it for yourselves. Okay? When I'm telling you the tentacles run deep, the tentacles run deep. The tentacles run deep. So he undertook this targeted investigation at the direction of former ISP Superintendent Doug Carter. And according to Heron's attorney, provided a thorough and more than sufficient probable cause affidavit. Well, that's the thing. It doesn't matter if Jeff Heron or Doug Carter believe that this probable cause affidavit is more than sufficient, because the prosecutor clearly feels that it's less than sufficient. She just said that above. And also, current ISP Superintendent Anthony Scott clearly feels that it's not sufficient, okay? But according to Heron's attorney, his top-tier work product, okay? Are you seeing? Let's back it up a bit and look at these words, okay? Jeff Heron is the best detective in the ISP. He is impeccable honesty, integrity. He took this on at the direction of Superintendent Doug Carter. Okay. His top tier work product was set aside for unknown reasons. And his disciplinary charges were manufactured. Well, how are you going to say that the ISP who brought the disciplinary charges, so are you saying the ISP itself is manufacturing disciplinary charges against its own lieutenants? This is the great divide that is been established. Like I said, old ISP versus new ISP. Doug Carter versus Anthony Scott, right? Eric Holcomb versus Mike Braun. But the charges were manufactured to make it appear as if Jeff had done something wrong. He did nothing wrong and will vigorously fight his disciplinary actions before the Indiana State Police Board. Herein was suspended without pay for a mere 2 days. Removed from his position as investigative commander and reassigned to the Indiana Intelligence Fusion Center and barred from teaching at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. ISP spokesperson Ron Galaviz noted that while Herein was reassigned, he has not been demoted. Well, that's semantics again. Semantics. Now we're going to get into this piece here where former superintendent speaks out. Doug Carter, who assigned Jeff Herein to the case, has since sounded alarms about how the Kleinhelter investigation was handled. During a nearly 40-minute interview, right? A 40-minute interview. He goes on he does the podcast rounds. Remember how every single one of these Delphi players, after sentencing, made the podcast rounds to convince the public that what was done in the Delphi case was right and correct? They had to convince the public, so they made those podcast rounds over and over and over and over again. Every single one of them went on the Bloodluster podcast. And yes, I mean Murder Sheet. Yes, I mean Hidden True Crime with Lauren Matthias and all of the above. These Indiana State Police and these prosecutors and these Unified Command individuals, all of these dudes in the Delphi case ensured that they made the podcast rounds to convince the public that the right thing was done. Well, now you have Doug Carter, who should be sitting comfortable in retirement, enjoying his life, basking in the glory of railroading Richard Allen and looking the other way, or going along with the railroading of Richard Allen and the attempted burial of the Delphi case, and condoning all of the bullshit that happened in Delphi with the 70 days of destroyed evidence that was intentionally recorded over, with the destruction of the marathon footage, with the destruction of the handwritten records from Monica Walla and Dan Doolin, all the shit that was destroyed, all of the destruction of the Keegan Kline letters from Reese Davis, all of the shit that happened in Delphi where they buried the case, they destroyed evidence, they destroyed shit from the tip line, they didn't send it over in discovery, then they went on the podcast rounds to convince the public the right thing was done. Well, now Doug Carter finds it in himself to go and make the podcast rounds about this particular thing. And during this nearly 40-minute interview, on Kendall and Casey, he said ISP's internal investigation was targeted and that Herein got moved to a job that doesn't matter. Bruh. Whoa. Is that the truth, Doug Carter, or is it the other way around? What was the investigation into Kleinhelter targeted? Well, who's telling the truth here? Carter, who retired from his post earlier this year, so should be shutting the fuck up, when Braun administration took over, was ISP's longest serving superintendent, spent nearly 40 years in law enforcement. Look at his ass. Look at his ass. All right, so Are you picking up on what I'm picking up here on? Let me put it this way. This entire thing with the Delphi case is extremely suspect. You had this entire thing unfold in a concert with the changing of the guard, okay? In other words, the entire Delphi crime, the entire Delphi investigation, and the entire railroading of Richard Allen all took place, right, under the old guard, under Doug Carter, Eric Holcomb, right? It's just funny that the prosecution of Richard Allen took place at this momentous time in history when the guard was changing in Indiana, when we were coming from Holcomb to Braun, when we were coming from Carter to Scott. This whole changing of the guard happened in a very uncanny way, almost as if the intention was that we have to get this Delphi case done and over with. We have to get Delphi buried. We have to get a patsy, and we have to railroad him and force him through the system. We have to get this whole thing done before we're out of office. Kind of like Tony Liggett, right? You know, everyone always talks about this election in Carroll County as being the reason that this thing was done. Well, I don't see it. I don't see it, because whenever is a sheriff's election so damn important that you're willing to do what they did in Delphi just to win an election? That's not how this works, okay? This is beyond elections of sheriff. This goes all the way up. So what this looks like to me is that they had to get Richard Allen, right, before the election for sheriff, because they needed to keep their hands on this investigation, quote unquote. They needed to make sure that this shit stayed buried forever in Delphi. So what they did, they ensured that they were able to get this done before the election so that they maintained control of the investigation, which means maintained control of the bury job. Just like they had to get this done also before administrations changed, before Doug Carter left office, and before Mike Braun came in as the new governor. Okay? That's what I'm seeing. He oversaw, in other words, Doug Carter oversaw the onset of the Klein-Helter investigation, but retired before the probe concluded in February. Carter said the communication with state and local officials about the Klein-Helter case went silent after Braun, okay, a fellow Dubois County Republican. Okay, Klein-Helter also endorsed Braun for governor. Herein found a very strong likelihood of probable cause to believe there had been theft, perjury, official misconduct, and conflict of interest. Again, that's prosecutorial discretion. This was after a comprehensive 3-month interview with search warrants, data reviews, personal interviews with counsel, county commissioner, the matron of the jail, with the sheriff himself, an 80-page probable cause affidavit. I came to some conclusions based on what I know, and a logical conclusion would be that there was some level of interference someplace. So look at this statement here, okay? So this is Doug Carter trying to insinuate that there was political interference, okay? So what he says is extremely shaky here, right? It's extremely flimsy. I came to some conclusions, okay, based on what I know, and a logical conclusion would be that there was some level of interference someplace. That's the flimsiest fucking statement I've ever heard in my life. Okay, you came to some conclusions based on what you know, and a logical and some level of interference someplace. Because things didn't go your way, Doug Carter? Because things didn't go the way you wanted? And again, like I said, this is on a podcast. This is making the podcast rounds What is he trying to get ahead of here? Herein additionally maintained in a separate letter sent to hundreds of members to the ISP Alliance. Okay. Now look at this. Listen to this. When I'm telling you there's a civil war in the ISP, look at this shit. Look at this shit. Jeff Herein, in a separate letter sent to hundreds of members of the Indiana State Police Alliance, says, I have reason to believe that the current ISP leadership may have improperly intervened to halt or suppress the progress of our investigation. So this is what I mean about the civil war in the Indiana State Police. So you have a lieutenant appointed by Doug Carter here to investigate Kleinhelter, now alleging that the current superintendent of the ISP, Anthony Scott, improperly intervened to halt or suppress the progress of the investigation. And you have that coincident with Doug Carter insinuating that the governor, Mike Braun, interfered. So now you have Doug Carter alleging interference, right? And you have Herein sending hundreds of letters to the ISP Alliance alleging interference. Now, the Alliance is an association of Indiana State Police troopers with the mission of promoting better law enforcement to citizens of Indiana and gaining statewide support for police. But neither Carter nor Herein have provided specific evidence of interference. Well, maybe because there is none. Maybe there's no evidence of what you guys are trying to insinuate here. Because what they're insinuating is that the governor and the ISP superintendent are interfering with what they had going in targeting Kleinhelter. Well, in the midst of all this, the governor's office has vehemently denied any involvement or obstruction in the Kleinhelter investigation, stating the special prosecutor has already made it clear that our office had no involvement. Fact, because you just heard earlier, she said that the governor's office had no involvement in her decision not to bring charges. Governor Braun's office also says it's a sad day when the former ISP superintendent, and that's Doug Carter, resorts to lies in a desperate attempt to smear our brave men and women in blue. Well, what the fuck? What the fuck? So now you see evidence here. Governor Braun is now calling Doug Carter a liar. Do you guys see what I'm trying to point out to you all here? Do you see what this is revealing? So Doug Carter is pointing the finger at ISP, his replacement. Doug Carter is pointing the finger at the governor and at the current ISP superintendent, saying they are interfering and burying this thing. And the current governor and the current ISP superintendent are pointing the fingers right back at Doug Carter, saying, you're lying. Again, it's a sad day when the former ISP superintendent resorts to lies in a desperate attempt to smear. Boy, 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 what the hell are we looking at here? What are we looking at? Huddleston additionally said, remember, special prosecutor, said she wasn't swayed by anything or anyone other than the evidence presented to her in the probable cause affidavit by investigators. I've never spoken with anyone from the governor's office. I've never spoken with the governor. I've never spoken with anyone purporting to represent the governor, she said. There was an investigation and I declined to file charges. And when there was more of an investigation, I didn't change my mind. I didn't necessarily feel like there was more uncovered. That's how I made the decision. Okay? And now you have Ryan Mears deciding he's going to pull out the rug from under her and go in charge in Marion County? And of course, Carter never won to avoid the spotlight. Tells Capitol Chronicle that Heron's discipline wasn't justified. ISP leadership moved our most senior detective to a basement to take phone calls, not because of what they should do, but because of what they could do. Any one of 7 million people in Indiana would have been in jail a long time ago based on this evidence, Doug Carter said. Really, bro? Really? Kleinhelter pointed to the Capitol Chronicle to his April 6 Facebook post in which he described the 9-month investigation into his conduct as both challenging and enlightening, and reiterated his claim that he committed absolutely no criminal activity. I've dedicated more than 30 years of my life to serving this county and the office, maintaining a reputation that has never been called into question until now, when it seems that politics, that's Doug Carter, right, have begun to obscure the lines of integrity and fairness. It's disheartening to witness how personal biases, Doug Carter, can infiltrate professional settings, particularly in a role that carries a considerable responsibility of serving the public and upholding the law. My commitment to this office and the well-being of our community remains steadfast. Okay? Now, remember what I was telling you guys in the recent episode that I did called Indiana State Police humiliated as another dirty cop is exposed. You remember that? So in that episode, I covered Earl Mayo, who's currently under arrest for the alleged trafficking of illegal firearms and the alleged theft of a firearm that was being used in a current ongoing case, and selling that stolen firearm with 10 others to a pawn shop. Remember? And do you remember how I showed you that the person running for that, he's the son of Jerry Williams, and that Jerry Williams is the person running for Lake County Sheriff, endorsed by Doug Carter. Doug Carter's right-hand man for the many of the past years has been Jerry Williams. Jerry Williams is the father of Earl Mayo, corrupt cop, and is currently running for Lake County Sheriff, right, under the Democratic ticket. And furthermore, that's not only Doug Carter's right-hand man, but that's Roy Dominguez's a former seat, sheriff of Lake County. And I remember I showed you in the previous episode about the Greek mafia and the RICO that's underway in Indiana, that the daughter of James Gerodemos, Athena Gerodemos, has just hired this Dominguez, former sheriff of Lake County, to represent her in this RICO case, or forthcoming RICO, where she's indicted with the 21 others as being part of this entire money laundering and illegal gambling operation, and potentially going into drugs and firearms trafficking, and potentially human. We don't know yet. All of this is just the tip of the iceberg. All of this shit is just getting started, but think of the relationships here. Because Doug Carter is at the center of all of this. He's at the center of this shit with Jerry Williams, Earl Mayo, Roy Dominguez, who ties directly in to this 22 count federal indictment, or this 22 target federal indictment with untold number of charges, because so many individuals, can't even add them all up. But now we're looking at, you got Lake County, you got Doug Carter, you got Jerry Williams, you got Indiana State Police, you got Earl Mayo, you got the Greek Mafia, you got the former sheriff of Lake County. There's a lot of shit going on here. And we don't even know what we're looking at yet. Like, this is all just barely hitting the public airwaves. From the Courier and Press, August 18th, 2025, probe into sheriff's alleged wrongdoing ends with investigator in hot water. A state police investigation into Dubois County Sheriff Tom Kleinhelter's handling of jail commissary funds resulted in no charges against the sheriff. Former ISP Superintendent Doug Carter alleged the governor's office interfered with the investigation, but provided no evidence when the claim was denied by the governor's office and the special prosecutor. Special prosecutor declined to file charges, citing insufficient evidence of criminal intent, which I agree with. The lead investigator on this case, Jeff Herein, was disciplined by the state police internally for sharing the probable cause affidavit and sending unprofessional emails to the prosecutor. The sheriff maintains he committed no criminal activity, reimbursed the funds, and fully cooperated with the investigation. Okay? A months-long state police investigation into Sheriff Tom Kleinhelter scrutinized his handling of jail commissary funds, but unlike a high-profile case against former Clark County Sheriff Jamie Knoll, no charges were filed. The only person disciplined was the detective who pursued the case. Some of the information became public during a July 25th interview with conservative, quote-unquote, talk radio host Rob Kendall and Casey Daniels. Former ISP Superintendent Doug Carter made explosive allegations that Governor Mike Braun's office was involved in squashing the investigation, but provided no evidence for the claim. The governor's office strongly denies any involvement in the case, and Special Prosecutor Holly Huddleston of Orange County said that no one from the governor's office influenced her decision not to seek criminal charges against Kleinhelter. I didn't feel like criminal charges were there. Okay, so I declined to file charges. All right, and then it goes over some of this once again. I'm going to get to the part with new information here. Trying to look for it. Okay, ISP's internal findings issued by Superintendent Anthony Scott stated that Herein acted outside the bounds of professional expectations in his communication with the prosecutor. He was found by Indiana State Police to be in violation of 3 agency policies. The disciplinary report states that Herein improperly sent a copy of the probable cause affidavit to at least 2 officials before the case had been reviewed or closed by the special prosecutor. ISP officials concluded the document sharing violated chain of command expectations and breached internal rules governing investigative communications. Okay. I think that about covers it with this one. So I wanted to show you here. This is a copy of the email. Okay, so we're going to take a little look at this. Check this out right here. This is from Jeff Herein to the special prosecutor, Holly Huddleston. Now, check out how this goes, okay, for you guys who are unbiased observers. So remember, this is ISP Lieutenant Jeff Herein writing, the special prosecutor. Holly, I've been a police officer for approximately 37 years, with 30 years as a detective, okay? I work numerous cases and understand we each have a role. A police officer's job is to investigate criminal allegations, interview witnesses, gather evidence, write search warrants, arrest criminals, and present their findings to prosecutors. Prosecutors review the evidence gathered by the police and decide whether to file charges and represent the state in court to pursue a conviction. Basically, police investigate and prosecutors prosecute. Throughout my career, I presented several cases I thought warranted charges, but the prosecutor declined to file. This doesn't upset me, and I expect it to happen and remind myself that even though prosecutors and police are not part of the same team, we are almost always on the same side, which is the right side. My relationship with the various prosecutors is simple. Too important to hold a grudge or Monday morning quarterback. Getting the bad guys is the goal, and a collaborative effort is needed. It is incumbent upon prosecutors and police to develop positive relationships. If the police trust the prosecutor and they believe they are committed to fighting crime, they will accept decisions and results they don't agree with. Look at all the typos in this thing. I found prosecutors and police are always too busy. There is never enough time in the day. Often we dread having difficult conversations. However, this is no excuse to keep from contacting each other. Most officers are interested in the outcome of their cases. They care about their communities and have a difficult and dangerous job. In the Sheriff Tom Kleinhelter case, my investigation showed Kleinhelter used taxpayers' funds to go on trips with his wife. He attempted to hide the purchases of alcohol, food, and entertainment by only submitting partial receipts and canceled their planned trip to Dubai. Look, he puts dubia, pocketing the money until being forced to pay it back after repeatedly lying or omitting details. When caught, he created 2 backdated special deputy documents, making his wife a special deputy in an attempt to avoid prosecution, and lied that the Dubois County prosecutor and an outside side attorney helped him create the documents. Okay? So again, is he admitting here that he made his wife a special deputy, that the sheriff had made his wife? Because it looks like he says, when caught, he created 2 backdated special deputy documents, making his wife a special deputy. Now, look, this is where he starts really getting into the weeds here. What I am having difficulty with is you contacting the original assigned case officer, Troy Stanton, who only interviewed a couple of witnesses. Uh-oh. Suddenly we have a new player. Now he's introducing the person he replaced, the original assigned investigator, Troy Stanton, the one who Doug Carter was not happy with, so took him off and put Jeff Herein on, right? So he references Troy Stanton and says, well, he only interviewed a couple witnesses, copied and pasted portions of the State Board of Accounts report in his report, and closed his investigation after failing to obtain receipts, airline records, credit card records, bank records, and computer and cell phone data. Troy was struggling with the investigation and health issues, and I was assigned to assist him. Troy did not do an adequate job and was removed from the case by Doug Carter. Since I was familiar with the investigation, I was assigned as lead investigator by Doug Carter, and Troy was ignorant of all the facts from October onward. I would like to have a face-to-face meeting to talk about the above so we can reach common ground. Unfair second guessing on both sides can quickly erode each other's credibility and sour future relationships. Jeff Herein, Lieutenant, Area 5 Investigative Commander, Field Investigations, right? Indiana State Police District 52, Indianapolis. Very interesting, right? Very interesting. Yeah, thank you. Good point there, Yolanda. You know, doesn't this sound familiar? Why did Doug Carter remove the FBI from the Delphi investigation? Are you seeing a pattern here of when shit doesn't go his way, Doug Carter removes, right, the entity that he is not happy with, and allows people who will do his will to move forward. Because remember, Delphi, no progress, right? Allegedly extremely complex. There's so many tentacles to this. The killer may be in this room, right? All the Doug Carter hocus pocus mystical fucking theatrics over the years. Very complex. So many tentacles. A killer who could be in this room. This is very complex. He's unhappy that Brad Rozzi's brother is getting pointed at as destroying or losing the marathon footage. So he kicks the FBI off the Delphi case. Well, now he's happy. Now he's unhappy. Yeah, thank you, Trial Junkie. Thank you. It will shock the community, be shocked. Oh, you know what else Doug Carter said? No one witnessed Bridge Guy that day. You guys know that? Are you guys familiar with that? Doug Carter is on record stating that no one witnessed Bridge Guy that day. Wow. Wow. Well, all of a sudden, we have 4 little girls, we have Betsy Blair, and we have Sarah Carba. How do we go from Doug Carter saying no one witnessed Bridge Guy? How do we go in Delphi from no one witnessed Bridge Guy to, 6 Bridge Guy witnesses at a minimum? Yeah, good point. Good point. After trying to blame the FBI for losing the CCTV marathon footage, by the way, I just wonder if all of you see what I see. So now I'm going to show you the official disciplinary action letter or order from ISP Superintendent Anthony Scott. Okay, here's what Anthony Scott issued after the internal investigation against Jeffrey Herein. Okay, so I'm just showing you here to Jeffrey Herein, Lieutenant, from Anthony Scott, ISP Superintendent. Subject, disciplinary action, finding an order. Okay. Lieutenant Jeffrey Herein appeared before Lieutenant Colonel Priest, presiding as hearing officer on July 9th, 2025 at 1 p.m. for the purpose of answering to the charges proffered against him on June 24th, 2025. Lieutenant Herein denied charges 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that he violated Regulation 7, Section 735 and 7311 of the Personnel Rules of the Indiana State Police Department, to wit. So we're going to read these one by one and take our time, okay? Here are the allegations. And this is what he's disciplined for. On or about December 24th, 2024, Lieutenant Herein disseminated information not disclosable to the public related to police work without permission when he disclosed case information from a public official investigation to Chad Blessinger, president of the Dubois County Commissioners. How do you say that, locals? Is it Dubois or Dubois? I don't know how to say this. I'm from a French speaking culture. We call that Dubois. Anyhow, president. So in other words, point number one. Jeff Herein leaked information to the president of the county commission See, you guys are telling me different answers in the chat. You're telling me Du Bois and Dubois. So I guess it's up to the reader. Yeah, that's funny. I can't even get a straight answer out of you guys. Okay, back to our point here. Point number one. I want you to think about what he actually did, okay? Because this is egregious. Okay, you gotta understand. Like, I'm leaving this shit up to you guys to judge for yourselves who did right, who did wrong. Okay? Imagine for a moment this is Jerry Holman. Okay, because remember, this is a lieutenant, investigator, right? This is like a level of Jerry Holman. Imagine if Jerry Holman had done this when you're thinking about Jeff Herein. So what he does, he inappropriately contacts the president of the county commission of Klein-Helters County and disseminates confidential information from the ISP investigation. Number two, on December 24th, Lieutenant Herein disseminates non-disclosable to the public investigative materials and case information to Mike Klunser, president of the Dubois City Council. Okay, so you see what he's doing? Do you see what this guy is doing? So, step one, he disseminates improperly investigative material and allegations and information to the president of the county commission of the sheriff's county. Then he disseminates improperly confidential information to the president of the city or the county council. So he's going after the power players in Klein-Helters County, county commission president, county council president. Okay? Furthermore, number three, on or about December 29, which means 5 days later, Lieutenant Herein was discourteous to another employee when he included non-relevant personal health information regarding Sergeant Stanton. Remember, Sergeant Stanton, we just learned, was his predecessor in this investigation. So what does he do to smear or discredit his predecessor? He discloses non-relevant personal health information regarding Sergeant Stanton as part of supplement number 3 narrative. Such conduct is unbecoming of an ISP employee. So is that a violation of HIPAA laws? Did he violate HIPAA and ISP rules to undermine his predecessor and to coerce the special prosecutor? And there's even more. On or about February 20th, 2025. So now we're what? 2 months later, Lieutenant Herein on this mission further disseminates confidential information without permission to Prosecutor Huddleston that also included non-relevant personal health information regarding his predecessor, Sergeant Stanton. We just read that to you. He also called him ignorant, remember? Okay, furthermore, on or about February 20th, obviously he's on a mission that day, Lieutenant Herein did commit overbearing and oppressive conduct in the discharge of his duties when, after emailing the prosecutor on February 19th, 2025, regarding her decision not to file charges, which he shouldn't have done, he sent a follow-up email criticizing the decisions of that special prosecutor in violation of Regulation 7, Section 7.3.11. Okay? Lieutenant Heron was afforded his appearance before the superintendent as provided by Indiana Code, Section 1011-215. After reviewing the evidence submitted to Lieutenant Colonel Priest and upon the recommendation of Lieutenant Colonel Priest, it is my finding that the evidence does not substantiate charges 1, 2, 3, and 5, but does substantiate number 4. Okay, so let's back it up. So the only thing he's getting disciplined for is that on February 20th, 2025, he disseminated confidential information without permission by emailing Prosecutor Huddleston that information that included non-relevant personal health information regarding his predecessor, Sergeant Stanton, the person Doug Carter doesn't like. Okay? So you see what happens here is that Superintendent Scott, in only disciplining him for that one action, suspended him for 2 days, right, without pay. So he gets a 2-day slap on the wrist. That Major Mitchell or his designee pick up and hold the weapons, badges, all identification, department computer, department cell phone, assigned Lieutenant Heron and the assigned commission of Lieutenant Heron for the duration. So for 2 days, they take his guns, they take his badges, they take his ID, they take his department computer, cell phone, and they take his commission away. Okay? Then they slap him on the wrist, take away the 2 days of pay. Okay? And he mentions here, if you wish to appeal, Section 15 of the ISP Act prescribes the necessary procedure to file an appeal. Appeal must be made within 15 days. Okay? Anthony Scott, Superintendent, Indiana State Police, dated 7/17/2025, CC'd Lieutenant Colonel Priest, Lieutenant Colonel Williamson, Major Hobson, Major Mitchell, Major Wood, Captain Hostler, and Lieutenant Norvell. Okay? All right, so now we're going to take a little closer look at some of the finer details in all of this. We're going to start here on this article from April 7th, 2025. Affidavit outlines investigation into Sheriff Kleinhelter's misuse of public funds, alleged misuse of public funds. Okay. Indiana State Police Lieutenant Jeffrey Heron filed several search warrants during the investigation. In a warrant filed in the Dubois County Superior Court on October 22nd, 2024, Lieutenant Heron explained the probable cause revealed in the investigation. The investigation into Sheriff Kleinhelter was opened after a regular audit by the SBOA that began in May of 2024. As County Sheriff, Kleinhelter oversees the jail commissary fund established under IC 36.8.10.12. 21. The statute specifies categories of expenses that can be dispersed at the sheriff's discretion without further appropriation by court physical body, okay, or fiscal body. According to the affidavit filed by Herein, the audit revealed approximately $78,000 in questionable expenses, of which Kleinhelter provided unverified justifications for all but $16,774.71. Okay. The remaining unjustified expenses include $7,900 spent on $400 Visa prepaid gift cards and 50 Blackstone 22-inch flat-top grills. Kleinhetter allegedly took one grill for himself and distributed the remaining items as gifts to department employees. So it seems to me what he's doing there, he's distributing all the department employees a grill. State auditors determined these expenses did not meet the criteria for allowable expenditures under state law and were not approved by the county fiscal body as required for discretionary spending. After being notified of his personal responsibility to repay the funds, Kleinhelter allegedly attempted to circumvent this obligation. Remember, this is all according to Doug Carter's boy, right? According to the auditor, the fund is $34,000 and is comprised of donations from the public. About half of it is earmarked to support the Sheriff's Office K-9 program. According to the affidavit, when Martin questioned the request, Kleinhelter insisted, because that's how I want to do it, rather than granting it. Morton contacted the SBOE field examiners for guidance. The State Board of Accounts investigation reported the sheriff subsequently submitted a payment to the commissary fund the next week. However, according to the affidavit, Kleinhelter later submitted a voucher for reimbursement of $16,774 from the sheriff's donation fund. That voucher, dated July 15, included SBOA auditor Scott Stockton's name in the request, as if the reimbursement had been endorsed by Scott Stockton of the State Board of Accounts, Lieutenant Herein wrote. Kleinhelter eventually withdrew the voucher request only after it was highlighted during the SBOA exit conference with the county fiscal body. Regarding the trip to Dubai, the sheriff revealed he had never taken it when his office submitted a press release in February stating he would not face any charges. But the affidavit shows a more complex series of events regarding the trip. Okay. And then they go into all of this. The affidavit concludes that a Kleinhelter appears to have made an inappropriate personal profit of $7,373.65 from the commissary fund by only reimbursing funds for his wife's expenses rather than his own as well. Okay, so here's where it gets funny to me. So you've heard all of these figures thrown around. I want you to look at this article, okay? So you go up to the top of this article. They start with a huge sum, right? They start with this sum of $78,000. Okay, because I hate to say it this way, but understand how the media is being used right now. And let me add this. If you go and start searching out this case and all of the articles, what you're going to see is you're going to see Doug Carter and the Indiana State Police using the media, okay, to spin this story. It's very clear they're using the media to spin this story. And I think this article is one of them. Like, notice the amount. Let's see if I can expand this somewhat. Is that better? Okay, notice at the top of the article, $78,000. Okay, they're starting with a huge sum. $78,000 is what they're alleging here. Okay? And then they whittle that down first to $34,000, right? and then to $16,000. Okay. But if you get down to the meat and potatoes, what it actually ends up being is this is all about $7,000. So is that a 10x? Is that a 10x? Did they 10x this figure to make it appear worse? I don't know. Sure does seem like it. 78,000 when it's really 7,700. 78,000, 32,000, 16,000. Why does everything keep halving, right? 78,000, 32,000, 16,000. Oh no, 7,000. Okay, so we're talking about $7,373. Now, check this out. What it says is that subsequent records noted that Kleinhelter made two personal deposits, $7,373.65, which is the identical amount, right? So that's a complete reimbursement to the penny. Completely reimbursed on August 6, 2024, and an additional $1,400 on August 21st. In a February press release from the sheriff's office, it stated that Orange County prosecuting attorney Holly Huddleston, assigned as special prosecutor, declined to file charges. The press release gave no reason for the decision other than the funds had been repaid. Well, and like I said, she gave her own reason for that decision when she said there was not enough there. Okay? And there are copies of some of these search warrants or probable cause affidavits for the search warrants. There's some copies in this particular article. Okay. But I want to move on to this one. Former ISP boss claims Braun froze the Kleinhelter case. July 25th, 2025. Okay. Braun froze the Kleinhelter case. Really? Where's the proof? Okay, let's see. Sheriff Kleinhelter repaid the full $16,000, $774.71 in June of 2024. Interesting. And there you go. Look, notice. Okay. Oh, what photo is that? Does that photo look familiar to y'all? Sure does look like a Delphi case photo. Matter of fact, it says right on the projector there, Delphi Double Homicide Task Force. Oh, look, that's Tony Liggett. Oh, look, it's Tony Liggett. Oh, look, it's Kathy Shank. Oh, look, it's Mullins. Oh, look, who else we got in here? We got this guy and this guy and this guy, right? Interesting. Interesting here. Former ISP Superintendent Doug Carter says the investigation into Dubois County Sheriff Tom Kleinhelter's misuse of jail commissary funds is stalled after Mike Braun took office. Then he alleges somebody in these orbits talked about this. Now, once again, remember when I pointed out to you his quotes before where it was so flimsy? Somebody, something, someone, somewhere. So once again, he goes into somebody in those orbits talked about this. That's the only logical conclusion, and it's irrefutable. Well, that sounds like Delphi logic, right? That sounds like Delphi logic to me. Let's see. What's the what was asked of these guys? What's the one piece of evidence that convinces you justice has been achieved in the Delphi case and Richard Allen is guilty of the Delphi murders? Oh, well, there's not one piece of evidence. It's more like the totality of circumstances. It's the only logical conclusion. It's irrefutable. we can prove that Richard Allen is a bridge guy, and we can prove that bridge guy killed the girls. Therefore, we can prove that Richard Allen killed the girls. Well, in the meantime, no, they can't prove that Richard Allen is bridge guy. No, they can't prove that the bridge guy killed the girls. And no, they can't prove that Richard Allen killed the girls. And remember, in order for any of this shit to work, you have to make these wild leaps of conclusions that are illogical. In other words, in Delphi, you have to look at this bridge guy and you have to assume that bridge guy is the murderer. Now, never mind that there's zero evidence whatsoever that bridge guy is the murderer of the victims in Delphi. Okay. Bridge guy could be the abductor of the girls. He could have kidnapped the girls and brought the girls to some others who were then the killers or killer of the girls. Bridge guy could have just been a person they encountered on their journey. Bridge guy also could have not been involved in anything whatsoever, because we don't have complete confidence that bridge guy is even real. I mean, we know we had Disney and NASA. We have questionable forensics and metadata. We know nothing about bridge guy. We know nothing about the Snapchats. We know nothing about the photos from the girls' phones. And we've got 6 witnesses who make zero sense in the Delphi whole deal. So the only way Delphi works is you have to jump to all of these conclusions and make all of these assumptions. But what does Doug Carter here? He does the same thing that was done in Delphi. He jumps to conclusions and then calls it irrefutable proof. Okay, without evidence. Remember, even in this article, they admit. Sorry about that. I've lost my mouse. There we go. Even in this article, they admit that Doug Carter made these allegations without evidence. Okay? But what does Carter do? He says, somebody talked about this. It's the only logical conclusion, and it's irrefutable. Okay, so, and he continues. Governor Mike Braun is from Dubois County. He was born in Jasper, Indiana, and graduated from Jasper High School. Carter also spoke about longtime detective Jeffrey Herein, whose influence at the agency has been reduced and who was pushed out and, according to this biased article, made the target of an internal investigation. No, he brought that on himself. Even though Carter says Herein was simply doing solid police work, just like Jerry Holman. Herein put together an 88-page affidavit for the case. Oh, well, that probable cause must be meaningful because it's an entire 88 pages. Now look at where he continues again. A logical conclusion with anybody that reads this or sees this or hears it would be that there was some level of interference, Carter said. Really, we're jumping to another logical conclusion? This is what's called the ISP modus operandi here of investigation in high-profile cases. Logical conclusions. Carter said what caught investigators' attention was the involvement of Kleinhelter's wife and how the money was moving out of commissary to personal accounts to commissary, personal credit cards. That was all done through forensic evaluation. He sounds like Jerry Holman now. This is science. The scientists say it. Okay. By law, commissary funds money collected from sales to jail inmates. Boy, that's a what? No, what we call that is a slush fund. What we call that is a slush fund. Can only be used for specific purposes like jail equipment, training, or crime prevention programs. Any other spending requires approval from the county council. While the audited while the audit called the sheriff's spending a misuse of public funds, it found no criminal activity. Oh, there's a new detail. There's a new detail, isn't it? So you're telling me that the state board of auditors did, uh, even though it thought there was a misuse, it found no criminal activity. Whoa! Is that an intentional admission? While the audit board thought it was a misuse, it found no criminal activity. But Doug Carter is insistent that he be charged with a litany of criminal offenses so that he serves a lengthy prison sentence. Let's continue. You get shit getting spicy here. Check this out. Doug Carter said Anthony Scott, who was appointed the 21st superintendent of the Indiana State Police, has not discussed the case with him and won't acknowledge it. Well, do we have a little butt hurt? Yeah. My replacement, he won't discuss it with me and won't acknowledge it. Oh my God. Oh my God. So let's see. He hates Mike Braun. Mike Braun won't talk to him. He hates Anthony Scott, new ISP superintendent. ISP superintendent won't talk to him. So he's resorts to going to podcasts. This is the point we're at. This is no different than what he did with the media in the entire Delphi investigation for years, right? Remember the feud with him and Tobe Lesenby, right? Where Tobe wanted to do that goddamn press conference and Doug Carter yelled and argued with him and bulldogged him his way and elbowed him out of the way and said, I'm doing this goddamn press conference. And then Tobe stood there next to him all fucking red in the face. He was so pissed. And you remember that press conference? Doug Carter stormed the fuck out of the building as soon as he was done. He's behaved unhinged in this way for years, and no one saw it. And he went on all of these fucking TV shows and did all of this bullshit. He constantly did these press conferences and used all this hyperbole and these fucking blah, blah, riddles, mystical phases, gaslighting the public for years over the investigation. And they go and arrest Richard Allen, and he won't even admit that he's going to go with Richard Allen. Oh, he's been arrested for the crimes of murder, Libyan. I mean, what do you think he did it? Well, a judge signs the probable cause affidavit for Richard Allen. Just a whole bunch of bullshit over the years. Then Richard Allen's convicted sentence. He does the post-sentence sentencing press conference, and he says, and if you fucking don't like it, leave the country. And also, I'd walk over hot shards of a glass for Jerry Holman. And also, all of these YouTubers and podcasters are you're saying mean things. You need to stop. Years and years of bullshit from Doug Carter, and he's still doing the same thing. Going to the media, an investigator off the case when progress stalled and put herein on it. Oh no, let's rephrase that. How about perhaps what you did is you pulled off an investigator off the case because you weren't getting what you wanted, and you put in the yes man so that you would get what you wanted. Is that what's going on with Lake County, Indiana right now? Is that what's going on with Jerry Williams right now? You see, because Doug Carter will consistently come out and he'll go on these conservative podcasts and act like he's speaking to the conservatives, act like he's speaking to the Republicans, and the whole fucking time he's a Democrat on the inside. You see, Jerry Williams is a Democrat. Earl Mayo's a Democrat. Was Mike Pence and Eric Holcomb, were they Democrats posturing as Republicans? It seems to me there's some political shit happening here between Doug Carter and the left-leaning Republican faction and Democrats, and then this right-leaning faction and Mike Braun and Anthony Scott and this. So, like, what is this? What's going on here? Is this political? Is it corruption? Is it not? It's too much, but all you can clearly see is that there's how would I phrase that? It's inappropriate ain't the right term, but it's like what you have here. It's really unbecoming of a former state police superintendent to behave in this fashion. They started an internal investigation, and he got moved to a job that doesn't matter. Oh, hold on, Doug Carter. Are you saying that the Fusion Center job doesn't? Doug Carter, are you admitting to all of your former ISP officers who once looked up to you, or are you admitting that all of their jobs don't matter? Unbecoming. Thank you. Oh my God. It's a new day. Took the words out of my mouth. I couldn't find the word I was reaching for. It. It's unbecoming. But Doug Carter says he got moved to a job that doesn't matter. Wait up. A lieutenant in the Fusion Center? That doesn't matter, Doug Carter? What is that saying to all the other lieutenants around the state of Indiana? What is that saying to all the employees of the Fusion Center? What is that saying to all your cops patrolling the highways in Indiana? Doug Carter, do no state police jobs matter except the ones that do your bidding? I think that's an egregious statement there. He got moved to a job that doesn't matter. Okay, so jobs don't matter in the Indiana State Police? That's very interesting, Doug Carter. I'm trying to highlight this thing. I don't know, the goddamn AI shit. Okay. But apparently, according to Doug Carter, his job doesn't matter. Sheriff Kleinhelter repaid the full $16,000, saying it was a mistake and not intentional. He claimed he asked for permission by phone but did not follow proper steps. Okay, the county formed a committee to oversee future spending, but the county council rejected the sheriff's request to spend commissary money on holiday events and retirement dinners without prior approval. The case was sent to the county prosecutor and the attorney general, but no charges or further actions have been reported. Oh, hold on. So now we're learning that this also includes the attorney general's office. Woo, woo. Woo, hoo, hoo. Boy, this story right here is so much bigger than it seems on the surface, y'all, in my opinion. And shout out to New Day, because me and New Day had a little talk about this recently, and we're trying to figure it out. This is very complicated, because who's to say they're not all corrupt? You know, is Kleinhelter corrupt? Fuck, I don't know. I'm not over here to say Kleinhelter is not corrupt. I'm here to point out to you the insanity of what's going on, the internal fighting, and the huge division between the old guard and the new guard. Okay? That's what I'm trying to do for you. I'm not making the judgment calls. I don't know Kleinhelter. I don't know how. All I know is I read the probable cause affidavit by Heron and Mears and Kleinhelter. There's no compelling evidence that shows criminal intent when I read the probable cause affidavits. And there are now two of them. So Kleinhelter, who I don't know. There's not enough to really run forward with the case. But why is Doug Carter on this mission to crucify this guy? And why is he coming out on fucking podcasts and trying his best to dismantle Mike Braun and the new ISP superintendent? Seems like there's something here. And not only is he doing that, he's using Mike Pence, Eric Holcomb, and the Delphi case and Jerry Holman to substantiate or prop up his point of view. And I'm going to show you that now. That's what's coming next. Okay, now I'm going to show you this article here, where I just want to show you a portion. This is called Indiana Capitol Chronicle. Dubois County Sheriff faces criminal charges tied to lying in state police investigation. Okay. I'm going to come down to the bottom. There's a section here I want to read called the fallout. If I can find it. There you go. State police fallout. The Indiana Capitol Chronicle reported in August 2025 that the state police probe had resulted in the investigator being disciplined after charges were not brought. Lieutenant Jeff Herein had compiled an 80-page probable cause affidavit for Special Prosecutor Holly Huddleston. When she declined to bring charges, he pushed back in an email to her. She forwarded that email to his superiors. Okay? Herein, a 38-year law enforcement veteran with no prior infractions, was formally disciplined by state police in July 2025 in connection to his work, where there's a first time for everyone. Okay. The internal investigation launched shortly after Heron sent the abusive email. ISP's internal findings, issued by ISP Superintendent Anthony Scott, stated that Heron acted out of bounds of professional expectations in his communication with the special prosecutor. He was found by the Indiana State Police to be in violation of 3 agency policies: disseminating information not disclosable to the public, conduct unbecoming of an officer, and overbearing and or oppressive conduct in the discharge of his duties. Heron was suspended without pay for 2 days, slap on the wrist, again, removed from his position as investigative commander. Well, that was probably appropriate. But remember, that's what Doug Carter calls he's being moved to a job that doesn't matter by being reassigned to the Indiana Intelligence Fusion Center. So let me ask you this. If you were appointed to the Indiana Intelligence Fusion Center, would you call that a job that doesn't matter? And he is now barred from teaching at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. ISP spokesperson Ron Galaviz noted that while Heron was reassigned, he has not been demoted. Heron is the officer who filed a probable cause affidavit in the new Marion County charges. Well, ain't that a bitch? Do you see what this is alleging now? This is a new detail for this story. So, the special prosecutor and the governor and the attorney general all refuse to press charges, right? So what does Heron do? He reconfigures this probable cause affidavit and drops it off to Ryan Mears, right, in Marion County. So now, same probable cause affidavit, just beefed up a little, Now he goes and says, "Oh, I'm a crybaby." Mike Braun, Anthony Scott, uh, special prosecutor, and attorney general's office. No one will press charges on this guy. So I'm going to bring it to you, Marion County Prosecutor Mears. Okay. Mears said ISP brought the case to him sometime in 2025, and Heron had a strong understanding. The prosecutor also noted that the procedure wasn't typical. Hello? Hello? The procedure, see, and this is a red flag where you actually fucking understand what's being said here. He says, Mears said ISP brought the case to him, and Heron had a strong understanding and noted that the procedure wasn't typical. That means it's atypical, including the fact that there was no record of acceptance or appointment of the special prosecutor in the case. What the fuck? What? Hey, Trenton, I don't know. Lawyers, could someone explain what the fuck is going on here? Because this gets lost in the wash, right? So now Mears is going to press charges after the fact and say this is atypical, including the fact that there's no record of acceptance or appointment of the special prosecutor in the case. I don't know. Where is our oversight here? What's really going on? And I just want to show who that's by. That is by, you see here, Casey Smith, April 9th, 2026, over at the Indiana Capitol Chronicle. You know, and hey, real talk, Casey Smith's been doing a pretty good job at getting this story out. So, you know, credit to Casey Smith for a large part of this information we've read tonight has been from Casey Smith. Um, Now, I want to do something else. Let me see. I got to get my stuff together here. I'm a little all over the place. Okay, first thing I want to do for you is I want to explain to you the hierarchy here. Might be able to show you this. Let's see. See if I can get this to show you. Well, I'm not going to show it to you. I'll read it. So the way this moved was like this. State Board of Accounts, right? Audits, Dubois County Sheriff, investigations opened, Indiana State Police, Doug Carter starts the investigation, unhappy with the work that's being done. He reassigns, puts Jeff Heron on. Jeff Heron stacks the deck, gets all of this case stacked up 88 pages or 80 pages. Goes to Judge Anthony Quinn at Dubois County Superior Court. He approves the search warrants. There's evidence seizure, investigation expands, prosecutorial review, okay? Special prosecutors assigned, right? There's a no charge decision. It escalates. Herein emails the prosecutor who is unhappy with the emails, okay? Heron's pressing for charges, disputing her decisions. She forwards up the supervisor or supervisory chain of command and the ISP for command review. Internal Affairs takes over, reviews the professional standards, investigates Heron, find policy violations, including communication protocol breach, improper dissemination of information, and overbearing conduct directed towards a special prosecutor. Okay, that all gets done. Superintendent Anthony Scott makes the final discipline decision, disciplines Jeff Heron. He's suspended for 2 days. He's reassigned, and his teaching restriction, reassigned to a job that doesn't matter, according to Doug Carter, and his teaching credentials are removed, right? It then, in 2026, somehow moves to Ryan Mears in Marion County. He charges files. Those files are on. Those charges are ongoing right now. Okay. See if I could somehow show this to you. I'm all over the place. I can't even see what I'm doing. Let's see. Yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But okay, I now need to pull up this to read to you because I got something. Matter of fact, I'm thinking I might be able to show some of it. Show you the part that I'm really concerned with. Let's see. Okay, so let's see. I'm getting there, guys. I apologize. I'm slow. It's a lot to organize. Too damn much. Okay. So now I mentioned Doug Carter doing the most egregious thing that I could have ever imagined, right? So Doug Carter, he goes on this Rob Kendall show, right? It's absolute shit show. You guys should go see it for yourselves. I believe New Day posted it. But let me read some of this to you. It's absolutely appalling, right? So he starts saying, um, so he's criticizing this special prosecutor in this thing. So I'm going to read some of this to you. So he says, Um, he says, he said, so the only thing that changed in all of this is that Braun becomes governor. And I remember I did call Josh Kelly. I wish I wouldn't have done that. I did it as a courtesy. Josh Kelly's the chief of staff for Braun. So, in other words, Doug Carter admits that he calls Braun's chief of staff. Okay, so I guess it's hard for me to, this is a lot to get it. In other words, go watch the interview. But I'm going to relay to you the vibe of what's being said at this portion of the interview. He basically says that he's pissed the prosecutors not bringing charges, the special prosecutor. So he calls the chief of staff for Mike Braun, right? He calls the governor's office, talks to Josh Kelly, and he says, and what I did, I called Josh Kelly, and geez, I wish I hadn't have done that. Okay. I did it as a courtesy. Um, I want the governor elect to know that the sheriff of his county is about to get arrested. So he basically calls Josh Kelly to tell Mike Braun, hey, yeah, we're about to arrest your sheriff. And he says Braun and Kleinhelter were both buddies. Okay. Um, but he was the incoming governor, and Josh Kelly was cordial but distant. Thanks for the phone call. Let the governor elect know. And that's the last I heard about it. That's the last I heard about it. Okay. So you see Doug Carter, he's still trying to press those power or pull those power levers, those levers of power. He's calling the governor and saying, "Hey, we need to talk cuz we're about to arrest your guy." And then the chief of staff, Josh Kelly, says, "Yeah, okay, well thanks for the call. I'll let the governor like know." And he's like, and that's the last I heard about it. Like he was supposed to be updated about it, or like he was owed a phone call from the governor or the governor's office. And he says the new state superintendent comes in and it just all goes away. There's no way Mike Braun wasn't aware of this. I mean, especially knowing what we know now, and how involved he is and the depth of those relationships. I'm not criticizing the governor's depth of his relationships nor his success. I applaud his success, but why wasn't this this is just a reality? Uh, he says this guy was guilty as sin, you know. And then Doug Carter says the following, and you guys listen what Doug Carter literally says. You're not going to believe this. Of course, right? Doug Carter says, um, Doug Carter says, where is it? He says, I have a really good working relationship with the local media and the national media and even the global media. I have a really good working relationship with the local media, the national media, and even the global media, says Doug Carter. And I was very disappointed that they didn't see this as something that deserves their attention. So you see so Doug Carter, he's trying to use his sway with the governor's office, with the local, national, and global media to get this story going, and no one's interested. And he says, And he says, I've been superintendent for 12 years. It's a long time. My criticism of the agency that I love has nothing to do with 99% of them because they're wonderful people, even though their jobs don't matter. It has to do with the people that are currently in leadership. When I realized what they were doing to one of the very best detectives the ISP has ever known, a guy named Jeff Heron, there's people that don't like him. Well, people don't like me. People don't like you. I could care less. What I do care is they gutted him. After almost 40 years in this business, with over 100 homicides, school shootings, those kinds of cases, high profile cases that have enormous consequence, and they ruined that detective by bringing charges against him. Then he alleges corruption. He says, I've had hundreds, literally hundreds, probably at least 300 disciplinary matters. I've never seen anything so cooked up as I did this. Really? Are we alleging cooking up, framing, corruption, Doug Carter? Wow, that's rich. And then he says, now he's been totally vindicated by Ryan Mears. Does he get an I'm sorry? Does he get here's a promotion? Like, this guy got totally screwed and he gets nothing out of this. And he won't get anything out of it. He's not heard from anybody about this. And he's a guy that's given so much of his life. And I'm not asking for sympathy, and I know Jeff's not either. But I tried to talk to Anthony Scott about this. And all I tried to do was build a successful transition model, a succession model. And we could talk about anything. But Anthony Scott never wanted to hear any of it. And I'm pretty sure that I take that pretty personal because I loved him. Well, and people lose faith in the system when this happens because you got this guy who obviously did it. The 80-page probable cause affidavit, which is public, everybody can read it. He's so guilty. There's no question about it. Whoa, sounds like Jerry Holman. Wait, what happened? What happened to due process, Doug Carter? What happened to he's alleged to have committed crimes? No. Doug Carter is literally going out there on podcasts saying he's totally guilty. He totally did it. And Anthony Scott won't talk to me, and Mike Brown won't talk to me, and that poor guy. It's the most cooked up thing I've ever seen. And I want to show you. We're at the part of that. We're at the part of this thing I really want to show you. Let's see if I can go get it for you. Let's see. Should be here. All right. This is a part of the transcript. He says, but clearly, these people are ridiculous. There are clearly two levels of justice here. This guy got off because he's buddy with Braun. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And he would have got away with it totally if you hadn't spoke up. Oh, that's the interviewer. And he says, and the interviewer says, do you miss being state police superintendent? And Doug Carter says, I was asked about that question. I was asked that question just last night in an event. And I said about a month ago is the first time I've slept all night. And it's been 14, 15 months now, but I'm finally able to sleep at night. Really? Are you, Doug? Are you? How about Jerry Holman and Nick McClelland and Judge Gull? Are all you guys able to fucking sleep at night? The answer is I'm the luckiest guy on the planet Earth. I left nothing on the table there, and I tried very, 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 very hard. Even clears throat, though I was criticized. It was a great ride, and I appreciate again what Governor Pence and Governor Holcomb did for me. Okay, this is what I'm trying to draw to your attention here. This portion of the interview. What? Okay, remember, he's there to talk about Kleinhelter, and he's there to point fingers at Braun and point fingers at the new ISP superintendent. So why is Doug Carter all of a sudden he just launches into Governor Pence, Governor Holcomb? I'm so appreciative of what they did for me, but more importantly, what they did for the rank and file of the state police officers out there. It was a wonderful ride, and I'm a lucky guy. And he says, if I was doing something wrong, like a lot of people currently, again, insinuating that all the current people in power are doing something wrong, then I probably would have been a little more defensive. Well, you're defensive now, Doug. When then the interviewer says, um, we were very critical of the secrecy associated with Delphi. Last year, you came on and did an interview about that. Yeah. I look on that period of time, and it was so sad, and it was brutal, and we were getting beat up from around the world. But when I looked at those detectives and I saw what they were doing in that community up there, made it all worthwhile. So why in the midst of this interview, pointing the fingers at the new ISP superintendent, pointing the finger at the governor, pointing the finger at the special prosecutor, why does he first say Eric Holcomb and Mike Pence were wonderful? Bah, 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 bah. And then launch into Delphi and say, oh, well, come on, let's do it again. Delphi, he says, oh, well, uh, uh, I look back on that period of time and it was so sad and it was brutal and we were getting beat up from around the world. But when I looked at those detectives and saw what they were doing in that community up there, it made it all worthwhile. You mean Jerry Holman and David Vito, Tony Liggett, and Steve Mullins, and the Patties and Anna Williams? So let's see. You're talking about how much you're hating the new leadership. So you're pointing the fingers. I hate Braun. I hate the new ISP, head, Anthony Scott. I hate the special prosecutors, but Pence, Holcomb, Holman, uh, Patties, Vito, Liggett, Mullins. Oh, wonderful people, just wonderful people. It made it all worthwhile. And if you don't like it, you can leave the country. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. More hot shards of glass to walk on. And I guess that's my take. That's my take on it. That's my take. And remember, this is an ongoing case. Okay. This is an ongoing case. Hey, New Day, you want to pop on and talk to me? Would you like to jump on, New Day? In other words, there are current pending charges from Ryan Mears against the sheriff, and he's running for reelection. See if I can pull that back up. And like I said, what the hell was it here at the bottom? You notice it's the last damn thing they show you. Like I said, Mears said ISP brought the case to him sometime in 25, and Heron had a strong understanding of the case. The prosecutor, Mears, also noted that the procedure wasn't typical, including the fact that there was no record of acceptance or appointment of the special prosecutor in the case. What the hell's going on with what? And this is an ongoing case. But keep in mind, like I said, Ryan Mears is running for re-election. Sound familiar? But yeah, shout out to New Day. Me and New Day are, me and New Day are talking about this story. We're gonna keep on top of this story for you guys. I wish she could come on. Look, she says she's not driving. I mean, she's not able to. She's driving. So thanks for driving. Be careful. I appreciate you too. But yeah, yeah, something else. I wish she'd come on. But me and New Day gonna keep tracking this shit for y'all. What's up, Ninja Warrior Assassin? Thank you for the $10 super chat. Boom. Thank you guys for the support here. By the way, while I'm here, let me remind all the viewers you could you can find all support pathways and also my Substack, my Facebook, and all of the other stuff over at the link tree, which should be pinned in the chat. It's also in the channel description. So if you'd like to follow me over on other platforms, go ahead, check out the link tree. All your links are there and in the description. I'd love to get to know you, especially if you're a new viewer. We're all pretty tight here. I know most of my audience here, but if you're a new viewer, we'd love to hear from you. So leave your comments down below on the replay, or if you're in the live chat, let us know you're watching live. Like we have 100 watching now and probably 10 chatting. So come on and join the live um, chat when you're watching. We love to have you chatting. I love your comments afterwards, and I appreciate all the support, liking, sharing, and if you want to contribute to the channel through donations, um, any way you like to do it. Hey, thank you for the question. Do you prefer Venmo or Cash App? Don't matter. Appreciate them. I love them both. Thank you. Appreciate them. Uh, Both. So Venmo, Cash App, it's any way you'd like to support me, I appreciate it. And as I mentioned, even if you're new, just by leaving your comments down below or sharing, you can share this on Facebook or wherever with people who need to hear. Because look, it's very clear. There's something going on here, right? Yeah, they take less. They take 10 times less. There's something going on here. And I think the big takeaway for tonight is not whether Kleinhelter's guilty or innocent or the extent to which there was impropriety or the story's really not that. Okay? The story is what's going on with this division here. Why is it and how odd is it that the old guard, those who have held power for so long in Indiana in terms of the governor's office, the state police hierarchy, some of the sheriffs, why are there so many battles among the power players? And we're seeing this very blatant warring between the old guard and the new leadership. Remember what Doug Carter says. The leadership is corrupt. Doug Carter wants you to believe that he was totally legit, that everything, when it comes to Pence, when it comes to Holcomb, when it comes to Carter, when it comes to the Delphi investigate, remember, he didn't mention a single other case in that podcast except the Delphi detectives and community. Oh, so he wants us to think that Pence, Holcomb, Carter, Delphi is totally fucking legit. And the problem is the new ISP and the new governor and the special prosecutor. That is very interesting, Doug Carter. Anyhow, y'all, I think that about covers it. This was our show. This was Indiana State Police. Doug Carter at the center of even more questionable bullshit. Pence, Holcomb, Delphi. And I don't know, man. There's a storm a brewing, and you have no clue what's a coming. And I think there's cause for optimism. Hopefully, we're seeing some shit beginning to hit the fan, and a lot of people going to get dirtied by that shit. Remember, currently underway, we have this case. Currently underway, we have the appeal of Richard Allen. Currently underway, we have the conviction or the prosecution of Ed Mayo. Currently underway, we have the federal indictment that's likely turning into a RICO of 22 involved with the Chicago outfit called the Greek Mafia, which includes what I read to you in the recent episodes, a couple feds that were dirty in Indiana, a couple local law enforcement who were bookies for that organization out of Illinois. There's some shit coming down, and the signs are beginning to show. We have a simultaneous a symphony of errors coming down. It's Delphi, mafia, corruption. Now you got this case with Doug Carter revealing that he is absolutely opposed to the new leadership. And think about it. He's calling them liars and corrupt. They are calling him liars and corrupt. Do you remember the portion of the article I just read where Governor Braun's office specifically called Doug Carter a liar? So there's all this finger pointing. Old guard says, you are liars, you're corrupt. New guard says, you're liars, you're corrupt. Looks like all of northern Indiana is exploding or imploding. And I applaud that. I applaud that. We have been waiting for the cracks in the dam for nearly 10 years now. And some even longer. Anyhow, I appreciate you all being here. Couldn't do it without you. Without my regulars in the chat, I wouldn't be coming live. So, Dennis McKean, that means you. Who's your daddy? That means you. Laura, that means you. Tammy Martin, that means you. Matt Payton. Deb, of course, that means you. Nicole Watt. American Night Mom. It's a New Day. Pertinent. Swade Smith. Peashy. Ninja Warrior Assassin. Trial Junkie. Oops. Did I just lose my place? Sure did. I wanted to put up New Day's comment. That's what I'm looking for. Come on, New Day. And I lost it, I guess. Oh, well, I'll keep going. Oh, there it is. Boom. LE narrative control is about power. Well, you don't think Doug Carter calling the governor, trying to intimidate, and having his lieutenant call the special prosecutor trying to intimidate, you don't think that was a flex? Mustang, that means you. All right. Who else is here? I don't know. My computer's lagging on the scroll up of the chat. Snoop Sleuth, that means you. Snoop Sleuth didn't realize she could come in the chat. She was glitching. Christina, Nancy Drew, Giuseppe, Brittany Renee. Okay. I don't know who was here much earlier that I could shout out, but shout out to everyone who's here much earlier. I'm having like glitching problems scrolling this chat for some reason. Come on, baby. I don't know. This new version of StreamYard is kind of glitchy, to be honest. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Matt Payton, Brittany Renee, Zaddy, Nancy Drew. Everyone who's been in the chat, I appreciate you. Monday was here. Arthur Clermont. Okay. Oh yeah. Erica Morris and Silence Woman were here. Quadaxel Mimi was here. David Rogers was here. Everybody, y'all know who you are. Just shout out down below if you're still here. My mouse is glitching. This damn new StreamYard. Okay. But yeah, I'm out of here. Have a great evening. God bless. Hug your kids. Hug your wife. God bless Libya and Abby. And God bless United States of America. Hey, God bless YouTube. Even though it's something else. I'll see you guys Friday night. All right. Carol, what up? Carol's here. She comes in as we're leaving out. Okay. Nice to see you. All right, y'all. Peace out. I'll see y'all Friday. All right.
you